The kitchen was a prison of steam and screams, pots clashing like a jailer's keys, but Helen, 62, stood defiant, her hands raw from labor, her heart a smoldering ember. Beyond the door, Liam's birthday party roared, laughter, music, betrayal, while she, the invisible cook, clutched a $10,000 lottery ticket, her secret rebellion. In one searing moment, a child's tantrum would burn her skin, and a stranger's arrival would steal her name. Tonight, she'd shatter her chains, or be consumed by the flames. The kitchen was a battlefield, and Helen was its weary general. Pots clanged like war drums, the oven's heat pressed against her skin, and the air was thick with the scent of roasting garlic and despair. Liam's 6th birthday party raged beyond the swinging door, children shrieking, pop music pulsing, balloons popping like distant gunfire. Helen, at 62, stood alone at the counter, her hands trembling as she piped frosting onto a cake that Emma, her daughter, had insisted be Instagram-worthy. The weight of the piping bag felt like a stone in her arthritic fingers, but she pressed on, her back screaming with every twist. This was her role, wasn't it? The cook, the cleaner, the invisible cog in the family machine. She stole a glance at the chaos through the door's porthole window. Frank, her husband of 35 years, lounged on the couch, chuckling at something on his phone. Emma, radiant in a pastel dress, posed for selfies with Tom, her husband, while Liam tore through the living room with a plastic sword. No one noticed Helen's absence. No one ever did. She swallowed the ache in her chest, the one that whispered, "You're nothing but the help." But today was different. Tucked in her apron pocket was a lottery ticket, scratched off that morning, its numbers promising $10,000, a secret spark of hope she'd share tonight. "Frank," she called, her voice fraying. "Can you grab the juice from the fridge?" No answer. Just the bass line of some pop song and Liam's wild laughter. She sighed, dragging herself to the fridge, her swollen hands fumbling with the handle. Hours bled into each other, chopping, stirring, plating. Her vision blurred, exhaustion carving lines deeper into her face. Yet, she imagined their faces when she'd announced the win, Emma's eyes wide, Frank's rare smile. Maybe they'd see her, really see her, for once. The door burst open, and Liam stormed in, his face a thundercloud. "The cake's ugly," he shouted, his small fists clenched. Before Helen could speak, he grabbed a can of soda from the counter and hurled it. The liquid splashed across her arm, cold at first, then searing as it soaked into her skin, already raw from hours over the stove. She gasped, stumbling back, the pain a white-hot blade. "Liam," she cried, but he was already gone, the door swinging shut. She clutched her arm, tears pricking her eyes. The kitchen spun. She waited for Frank, for Emma, for anyone to rush in. No one came. Minutes later, Frank poked his head through the door, frowning. "What's the mess?" he muttered, eyeing the spilled soda. "Liam threw it," Helen whispered, her voice small. "It hurts." Frank scoffed. "He's just a kid, Helen. Don't make a scene." He vanished back to the party, leaving her with the sting of his words and the burn on her skin. The door swung open again, and there she was, Diane. Frank's high school sweetheart, all sleek silver hair and practiced charm, waltzing in like she owned the place. Helen's stomach twisted. Diane had been circling their lives lately, all coy smiles and just dropping by. Now, she knelt by Liam, who'd run back in, tears streaming. "Oh, sweetheart," Diane cooed, pulling him close. Liam buried his face in her shoulder, sobbing, "Grandma Diane." The words were a knife in Helen's chest. Grandma Diane? She, Helen, was the one who'd bandaged his scrapes, baked his cookies, wiped his tears. Yet here was Diane, stealing her place, her love, her family. Helen's hands shook as she wiped soda from her arm, the pain now a dull roar. She saw it clearly, she was invisible, replaceable. The laughter from the living room mocked her, Diane's voice rising above it, warm and commanding. Helen's heart, long buried under duty, cracked open. She thought of the lottery ticket, her secret escape. no more. She wouldn't beg for scraps of their affection. At the party's peak, Helen stepped into the living room, her wet apron clinging to her. The music paused. All eyes turned, Frank's annoyed, Emma's impatient, Diane's smug. Helen's voice, steady despite her trembling, cut through the silence. I'm done. I want a divorce, Frank. Gasps rippled. Frank's jaw dropped. What are you talking about? He sputtered. Emma rushed forward. Mom, stop it. You're embarrassing us. But Helen's gaze was steel. I'm not your cook. I'm not your maid. I'm leaving. She turned, ignoring their protests, and booked an Uber on her phone. In the bedroom, she packed a single bag, clothes, her mother's locket, the lottery ticket. The house buzzed with chaos behind her, but she felt light, untethered. The Uber's headlights glowed in the driveway. She stepped out, the night air cool against her burned arm, and didn't look back. At the hospital, a nurse bandaged her arm, her eyes kind but pitying. You'll be okay, she said. Helen nodded, but she was already dreaming beyond okay. At a quiet inn, she checked in, the room small but hers alone. Lying on the bed, she traced the lottery ticket's edges, envisioning coral reefs, open highways, the northern lights' ethereal dance. For the first time in years, she felt the pulse of her own desires. Days later, her phone buzzed with notifications. Emma's Instagram was a shrine to Diane, smiling photos, captions about family. Helen's name was erased, replaced by bad grandma. Rage flared, then settled into resolve. She opened her own account, posting photos of her bandaged arm, the hospital report, her truth. Comments flooded in, strangers' sympathy, outrage at Frank and Emma. The tide turned. Emma's influencer deals dried up. Frank's posts with Diane drew scorn. The divorce was swift, her lawyer a bulldog. Frank and Diane scrambled to save face, but their charm offensive crumbled. Helen, meanwhile, cashed her $10,000 and booked a flight to the Caribbean. She bought a cottage, its walls soon lined with photos of her scuba dives, desert sunsets, snowy peaks. Her Instagram grew, a beacon for women like her, silenced, now soaring. Emma called once, voice tearful. Mom, we need you. Frank left voicemails, pleading. Helen listened, then deleted them. She wasn't their cook anymore. She was Helen, reborn, unbreakable, her story written in starlight and sea. The Caribbean sun kissed Helen's skin, a lover's touch she'd forgotten she deserved. Her cottage, perched on a cliff overlooking turquoise waves, hummed with the quiet of her new life. Seashells lined the windowsills, each one a trophy from her morning walks, where she'd whisper her fears to the tide and let it carry them away. At 62, she was no longer the cook, the shadow, the erased. She was Helen, and her heart, once a caged bird, now soared. Yet, even in paradise, the past clawed at her. Her phone, tucked in a drawer, buzzed with ghosts, Emma's texts, Frank's voicemails, each a barbed hook. She ignored them, but their echoes stirred a restless hunger. Not for their love, she'd outgrown that, but for justice, for her story to be more than a footnote in their lives. She sipped coffee on her porch, the lottery winnings now a bank balance fueling her dreams, and opened her laptop. Her Instagram, once a timid experiment, had grown into a tapestry of her rebirth. Coral reefs she'd dived, markets she'd wandered, strangers' smiles she'd earned. Her followers, thousands now, called her the Phoenix Grandma. But today, she needed more than photos. She typed a post, her fingers trembling with purpose. They called me the bad grandma. They erased me. Here's my truth. She uploaded a video, her voice steady, her eyes fierce, recounting the birthday party, the soda burn, Diane's theft of her place. She spoke of her escape, her healing, her joy. I'm not invisible anymore, she ended, the ocean roaring behind her. The post went viral, comments flooding like a tidal wave. You're a warrior. Shame on them. Emma's polished Instagram, already crumbling, took another hit. Sponsors dropped her. Frank's feeble posts with Diane were drowned in criticism. Helen closed the laptop, her chest tight with triumph and something darker, grief for the family she'd once believed in. She wandered to the beach, sand cool between her toes, and let the waves wash over her feet. A memory surfaced, Emma, 5 years old, braiding Helen's hair, giggling. Where had that girl gone? Had Helen's silence, her years of swallowing neglect, taught Emma to dismiss her too? The thought stung, but she pushed it down. She wasn't here to mourn. She was here to live. Her phone rang, shattering the moment. Emma's name flashed. Helen's thumb hovered, then pressed accept. Mom, Emma's voice cracked, raw with desperation. Why are you doing this? My brand's ruined. People hate me. Helen's jaw tightened. You painted me as the villain, Emma. You chose Diane. A sob broke through. I didn't mean to. Dad said. Diane said. Helen cut her off, her voice low, molten. You're 35, Emma. Own your choices. Silence stretched, heavy. I'm sorry, Emma whispered, but I testament. The words hung, frail. Helen hung up. She stood on the cliff, the wind tangling her hair, and felt the weight lift. The call had been a mirror, showing her not weakness, but strength. She wasn't their savior. She was her own. That night, she booked a trip to Iceland. The northern lights awaited. Her story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The Icelandic sky was a cathedral of light, ribbons of emerald and violet twisting above Helen like a cosmic hymn. She stood on a frozen hill, breath clouding in the Arctic chill, her heart pounding not from cold but from awe. At 62, she'd chased the northern lights, and here they were, painting her soul with colors she'd forgotten existed. Her camera hung unused around her neck, some moments were too sacred for capture. She closed her eyes, letting the wind carry her thoughts. This was freedom, not just from Frank, Emma, or Diane, but from the woman she'd been, the cook, the martyr, the ghost. Back at her Reykjavik guesthouse, Helen sipped hot cocoa, the mug warming her hands as she scrolled through her Instagram. Her latest post, a silhouette against the aurora, had sparked a flood of messages. You're my hero, one read. I left my toxic job because of you, said another. She smiled, but her fingers paused over a new notification, a direct message from Tom, her son-in-law. Her stomach knotted. Tom had always been a bystander, silent in the chaos of Liam's birthday, complicit in Emma's betrayal. What could he want? She opened it. Helen, I need to talk. It's about Emma. Please. The words were clipped, urgent. She hesitated, the memory of Emma's tearful call still sharp. But curiosity, laced with caution, won. She typed back, call me. Now. Minutes later, her phone rang. Tom's voice was low, strained. Helen, Emma's not okay. She's obsessed with fixing her image, but it's breaking her. She won't eat, won't sleep. I'm scared. Helen's grip tightened on the phone. Why tell me, Tom? You all erased me. A pause, heavy with guilt. I know. I was weak. But Liam misses you. He asks for you, not Diane. Her throat burned. Liam. Her grandson, whose laughter once lit her world. What do you want from me? She asked, voice steady but thin. Come back, Tom pleaded. Just talk to her. Helen's laugh was sharp, a blade. I'm not your bandage, Tom. Tell Emma to face herself. She hung up, her hands shaking, not with anger but with the weight of her own resolve. She stepped onto the guesthouse balcony, the city's lights winking below. Tom's words churned in her mind, stirring a flicker of doubt. Was she cruel to refuse? Liam's face, his wide eyes, his sticky-fingered hugs, haunted her. But she saw the trap, the pull of duty, the old chains disguised as love. She'd spent decades saving others, losing herself. no more. She whispered to the stars, I choose me. The next day, Helen joined a tour to a geothermal spring, her body sinking into the steaming water as her mind wandered. A woman beside her, gray-haired and vibrant, struck up a conversation. You're the Phoenix grandma, aren't you? She asked, eyes twinkling. Helen blushed, nodding. The woman, Ingrid, shared her own story, leaving an abusive marriage, rebuilding in her 50s. You're not just living, Ingrid said, you're teaching others to. The word struck Helen like lightning. Her journey wasn't just hers, it was a beacon. Back in her room, she opened her laptop, inspired. She started a blog, Phoenix Rising, weaving her adventures with lessons on courage, self-worth, and starting over. Her first post, about Iceland's magic and refusing to be guilt back, went live. Comments poured in, stories of others breaking free. Helen's heart swelled. She wasn't just surviving, she was leading a quiet revolution. Her phone buzzed again. Frank this time. She didn't answer. His voicemail was a slurry of excuses, begging her to fix the family. She deleted it, her finger steady. The northern lights had shown her the vastness of her own spirit. She'd return to her cottage, plan her next trip, perhaps the Sahara. Her story, her life, was hers to write, and the pages were far from full. The Sahara stretched before Helen like a golden ocean, its dunes sculpted by a restless wind that whispered of ancient secrets. She stood at the edge of a Bedouin camp, the sun searing her skin, her scarf fluttering like a flag of defiance. At 62, she was no longer tethered to the kitchen's chaos or the family's neglect. She was a wanderer, a weaver of her own myth. Her blog, Phoenix Rising, had become a lighthouse for the lost, its words sparking courage in strangers across the globe. Yet, as she traced the horizon, a shadow lingered in her heart, not regret, but a quiet question, could she ever forgive? Her camel swayed beneath her, its rhythm steadying her thoughts. The desert was a mirror, reflecting her resilience but also her scars. She'd ignored Frank's voicemails, deleted Emma's texts, but Liam's name, spoken by Tom, haunted her. Her grandson, now 7, was a flicker of light in her memory, his giggle, his small hand in hers. Had she abandoned him to save herself? The thought gnawed, a pebble in her shoe. She pushed it aside, focusing on the campfire ahead, where nomads sang under a star-strewn sky. Tonight, she'd join them, her voice a thread in their tapestry. At the camp, Helen sat cross-legged on a woven rug, sipping mint tea that burned her tongue. A young woman, Aisha, shared stories of her own escape from a rigid village life. You give me hope, Aisha said, her eyes gleaming. Helen's chest tightened. She saw herself in Aisha's fire, hungry, unbroken. Hope is a spark, Helen replied, her voice soft but sure. Fan it. The words felt like a vow, not just to Aisha but to herself. She wasn't just living, she was kindling flames. Her phone, a reluctant companion, buzzed in her pack. She ignored it, but later, under the desert's infinite dark, she checked it. A new message, not from Frank or Emma, but Diane. Helen's pulse quickened. Diane, the usurper, the grandma, who'd stolen Liam's love. The message was brief. Helen, I'm sorry. Can we meet? I need to explain. Fury flared, then curiosity. What could Diane possibly say? Helen typed, why now, and hit send, her fingers trembling. Diane's reply came fast, I'm leaving Frank. I was wrong. Please, in person. Helen stared at the words, the desert silent around her. A meeting? A trap? Or a chance to face the woman who'd unraveled her family? She didn't respond. Instead, she joined the nomad's dance, her feet clumsy but bold, the drumbeat pulsing through her bones. As she spun, she imagined confronting Diane, not with anger, but with the quiet power of her new self. The thought thrilled her, a spark in her blood. Back at her tent, she booked a flight to Lisbon, her next stop, but added a layover in London, where Diane lived. One meeting, she decided, not to heal old wounds, but to close them. In London, Helen met Diane at a quiet cafe, the air thick with rain and tension. Diane looked older, her silver hair dull, her eyes shadowed. "I was jealous," Diane admitted, her voice cracking. "You had the life I wanted, Frank, a family. I thought I could take it." Helen's jaw clenched, but she listened. "I hurt you," Diane continued, tears falling. "And Liam, he's confused, caught in the middle." Helen's heart stuttered at Liam's name. "Where is he now?" she asked, her voice ablade. "With Emma," Diane said. "She's spiraling, Helen. She needs you." Helen leaned back, her laugh cold. "They don't get to need me anymore." "But Liam," she paused, her resolve wavering. "I'll see him. Not for you. For him." Diane nodded, defeated. Helen left the cafe, rain soaking her coat, her mind a storm. She wasn't returning to her old life, but Liam deserved a piece of her new one. She'd visit, not as the cook, but as the phoenix, unafraid, untamed, her wings wide. Lisbon's cobbled streets gleamed under a honeyed sun, their curves whispering tales of explorers who'd sailed into the unknown. Helen, now 63, walked with a pilgrim's purpose, her boots clicking a rhythm of resolve. Her blog, Phoenix Rising, had woven her into a constellation of dreamers, but today, her heart tugged toward a single star, Liam. The decision to see her grandson, made in London's rain-soaked cafe, felt like a tightrope over a chasm. She wasn't the grandmother who'd baked his birthday cakes, nor was she ready to forgive Emma's betrayal. Yet, Liam's innocent laughter echoed in her dreams, a siren call she couldn't ignore. She paused at a pastelaria, the scent of custard tarts curling around her like a warm embrace. Sipping espresso, she scrolled through her phone, her blog's latest post, a meditation on courage in Morocco's souks, glowing with comments. "You've changed my life," one read. Helen's lips curved, but her eyes drifted to a photo of Liam, sent by Tom, gap-toothed, holding a paper plane, his smile a mirror of her own childhood. Could she walk into his world without slipping back into the shadows? She tucked the phone away, her fingers brushing the leather journal where she'd begun sketching her next adventure, Patagonia's wild peaks. Liam would have a place in her story, but not at the cost of her light. Her flight to London landed under a bruise-colored sky. At Emma's apartment, Helen stood at the door, her pulse a drumbeat. She'd texted Tom, not Emma, to arrange this. The door creaked open, and Liam's face appeared, eyes wide as moons. "Nana," he whispered, the word a spark in her chest. Before she could speak, he flung himself into her arms, his small body a anchor. She knelt, breathing in his shampoo-scented hair, her heart cracking open. "I missed you," he mumbled. "Why'd you go?" Her throat tightened. "I had to find myself, sweet boy," she said, her voice a soft tide. "But I'm here now." Emma hovered in the doorway, her face gaunt, eyes red-rimmed. "Mom," she said, voice brittle. "You came." Helen stood, Liam's hand in hers, her gaze steel. "For him, Emma. Not you." Emma flinched, but nodded, stepping aside. The apartment was a shrine to chaos, unwashed dishes, scattered toys, Emma's influencer polish stripped bare. Liam tugged Helen to his room, showing her a drawing, a stick figure Helen with wings, soaring over a blue sea. "That's you, Nana," he said, proud. Tears pricked her eyes. He saw her, not the cook, but the phoenix. Over tea, Emma's words spilled, jagged and raw. "I messed up, Mom. I let Diane in, let Dad control me. I'm losing everything." Helen's cup paused at her lips. She saw Emma's desperation, but also her refusal to own the wound she'd carved. "You chose to erase me," Helen said, her voice low, a blade wrapped in velvet. "You don't get to rewrite that now." Emma's sob broke the silence, but Helen's heart held firm. She turned to Liam, coloring at the table. "Want to go to the park, love?" she asked. His grin was her answer. At the park, Liam raced to the swings, Helen pushing him as he squealed. Each push was a prayer, for his joy, for her strength. She'd stay in London a week, build memories with Liam, then return to Lisbon. Emma's pleas, Frank's absence, Diane's apologies, they were noise, not her truth. As Liam soared higher, Helen felt her own wings unfurl. Patagonia called, and she'd answer, Liam's love a treasure she'd carry, not a chain to bind her. Patagonia's winds howled like a chorus of ghosts, carving paths through jagged peaks that pierced the sky. Helen, now 63, stood at the edge of a glacier, her breath misting in the icy air, her eyes tracing the blue veins of ice that pulsed like the Earth's own heart. Her blog, Phoenix Rising, had grown into a movement, its stories of rebirth fueling thousands. But here, in this raw wilderness, she sought something quieter, a reckoning with the woman she'd become. Liam's laughter from their London week echoed in her mind, a melody she cherished, yet she felt the pull of her own horizon. Could she love him fiercely and still belong only to herself? Her hiking boots crunched on frost as she joined her guide, Matteo, a weathered man whose eyes held the calm of mountains. They trekked toward a hidden lagoon, and with each step, Helen's thoughts unfurled. She'd left London with Liam's drawing, her winged self, tucked in her journal, a talisman. But Emma's tear-streaked face lingered, her pleas for forgiveness a weight Helen refused to carry. Frank's silence was louder, a void where his apology should have been. Diane's confession in London had cracked something open, but not enough to rebuild. Helen's heart was a fortress now, its gates open only for those who saw her light. At the lagoon, turquoise water shimmered under a cliff's shadow. Matteo offered her a thermos of mate, its bitter warmth grounding her. You carry a story, he said, his voice gravelly. It's in your eyes. Helen smiled, surprised by his insight. I'm learning to tell it, she replied, her gaze on the water. She pulled out her journal, sketching the lagoon's edges, her pen tracing not just the landscape but her own edges, sharp, unyielding, yet soft where Liam's love touched. She wrote, I am enough. The words felt like a vow. Her phone, a reluctant tether, pinged with a new message. It was Tom, again. Helen, Liam's asking for you. Emma's worse, she's in therapy, but it's rough. Can you call? Her jaw tightened. She pictured Liam's hopeful eyes, Emma's fragile frame. Part of her ached to soothe them, the old Helen who'd cooked through pain. But the new Helen, forged in deserts and auroras, knew better. She typed, I'll call Liam tomorrow. Emma needs to heal herself. She hit send, her heart steady, and tucked the phone away. That night, in a rustic lodge, Helen sat by a crackling fire, her blog open on her laptop. She typed a new post, her fingers dancing. In Patagonia, I learned that love doesn't mean sacrifice. I love my grandson, but I won't shrink for him. I'm not the cook anymore, I'm the flame. She uploaded a photo of the glacier, her silhouette small but fierce against its vastness. Comments flooded in, you're my North Star. I'm leaving my marriage because of you. Her throat tightened. She wasn't just living, she was rewriting what it meant to be free. A fellow traveler, Clara, joined her, her silver braid catching the firelight. Your blog saved me, Clara said, voice trembling. I was invisible too. Helen reached for her hand, their stories weaving together. As Clara spoke of her own escape, Helen saw Liam's future, strong, not trapped by his mother's mistakes. She'd call him, send him letters, visit when she could. But her life, her fire, burned here, now. The next morning, Helen stood on a peak, the wind awiled him. She spread her arms, feeling her wings, real, unbroken. Patagonia was her mirror, reflecting a woman who'd chosen herself. Her next journey, perhaps Japan's cherry blossoms, awaited. Liam would always have her love, but her story, her sky, was hers alone. Kyoto's cherry blossoms fell like soft whispers, carpeting the philosopher's path in a blush of pink. Helen, 63, walked beneath their fleeting canopy, her steps deliberate, as if each petal marked a moment of her reclaimed life. Her blog, Phoenix Rising, now a global chorus of resilience, had brought her here, to Japan's ancient heart, where spring's impermanence mirrored her own transformation. Liam's voice, bright in their weekly calls, was a tether to love, but today, her soul sought something deeper, a peace that didn't bend to the past's demands. Could she hold her freedom and still face the ghosts that lingered? She paused at a tea house, its shoji screens casting dappled light. Sipping matcha, its grassy tang sharp on her tongue, she opened her journal, its pages thick with sketches and truths. She wrote of Patagonia's wild winds, but also of Liam's latest letter, a crayon-drawn phoenix, its wings bold. For Nana, he'd scrawled. Her heart swelled, yet a shadow crept in. Tom's messages had grown urgent, Emma was unraveling, her therapy unearthing guilt but no strength. Frank, now alone, had emailed, his words a clumsy plea for reconciliation. Helen's pen stilled. Their pain was real, but was it hers to fix? She traced the teacup's rim, her reflection wavering in the green liquid. She'd been their anchor once, sinking under their weight. Never again. A notification broke her reverie, a message from an editor in Tokyo. Your blog inspires millions. We want your memoir. Helen's breath caught. A book? Her story, inked and bound, could be a lighthouse for others. But it would mean exposing her wounds, Liam's thrown soda, Diane's betrayal, Emma's erasure. She stood, the tea-house air suddenly close, and walked to a temple garden, its raked gravel a map of calm. Kneeling by a koi pond, she watched fish glide, their grace a silent lesson. Writing her truth would hurt her family, but silencing it would hurt her more. She whispered to the water, I choose my voice. Back at her ryokan, Helen called Liam, his chatter about school a bomb. When can I visit you, Nana? He asked, voice small. Her chest ached. Soon, love, she promised, imagining him in her Lisbon cottage, chasing waves. Hanging up, she saw a new email from Frank, I'm sober. I'm sorry. Can we talk? Her fingers hovered over the reply button, anger and pity warring within. She typed, your sorry comes too late. Live your truth, Frank. I'm living mine. Sending it felt like shedding a final chain. That evening, Helen joined a Hanami festival, lanterns glowing like stars. A woman, Yuko, shared sake and her own story of leaving a stifling marriage. Your blog gave me wings, Yuko said, her smile radiant. Helen's eyes stung. She saw Liam's future in Yuko's courage, free, not bound by Emma's chaos. Accepting the memoir offer, she decided, was her next step. She'd write for Liam, for Yuko, for herself. As petals drifted, Helen danced under the cherry trees, her laughter mingling with the crowds. Japan had taught her that beauty fades, but strength endures. Her memoir would be her legacy, a phoenix's cry. Tomorrow, she'd plan her next journey, perhaps Bhutan's monasteries. Liam's love was her compass, but her story, her fire, burned for her alone. Bhutan's mountains rose like silent sentinels, their peaks draped in mist that curled like a dragon's breath. Helen, 63, stood before a crimson-robed monk at Paro Taksang, the Tiger's Nest Monastery, her heart a quiet drum. Her blog, Phoenix Rising, had ignited a global fire, and her memoir deal was sealed, its first chapters raw with truth. Yet, here, in this sacred silence, she sought not applause but clarity. Liam's love anchored her, but the weight of her story, soon to be a book, stirred a question. Could she share her pain without losing the peace she'd fought for? Her sandals whispered on stone steps as she climbed toward the monastery, prayer flags fluttering like her thoughts. Each step was a meditation, her breath sinking with the wind. She'd written of the kitchen's chaos, Diane's theft, Emma's betrayal, but the words felt heavier now, poised to ripple beyond her control. Would Liam, one day, read her book and see his mother's shame? She paused, gripping a railing, her knuckles pale. Her journal, tucked in her pack, held a new sketch, a phoenix cradling a star, her and Liam, bound but free. She'd write for him, she decided, but not to wound. At the monastery's heart, Helen lit a butter lamp, its flame dancing in the dim. The monk, eyes ancient as the mountains, spoke softly. Truth is a heavy gift. Carry it with care. His words struck her core. She nodded, the lamp's glow warming her resolve. Her memoir would be a beacon, not a blade. Kneeling, she whispered a vow, to tell her story with love, not vengeance. The act felt like shedding armor she hadn't known she wore. Her phone, silenced but persistent, hummed with a message from Tom. Helen, Emma read your blog. She's breaking, wants to see you. Liam's struggling too. Her stomach twisted. Liam's drawings, his voice on their calls, were her joy, but Emma's pain was a storm she'd escaped. She typed, I'll call Liam. Emma must face her own path. Sending it, she felt a pang, not guilt, but sorrow for the daughter she'd lost to choices neither could undo. In Paro's market, Helen wandered, the air sharp with chili and incense. A vendor, an old woman with a laugh like bells, gifted her a turquoise bracelet. For strength, she said. Helen slipped it on, its cool weight a reminder of her own. She bought a postcard for Liam, scrawling, Nana's climbing mountains. You're my star. Mailing it, she imagined his smile, her love crossing oceans. But a new email waited, a journalist requesting an interview about her memoir. Your story's a revolution, it read. Helen's pulse quickened. Her words could shift the world, but at what cost to her quiet? That night, in a guest house lit by candles, Helen drafted her memoir's next chapter, her laptop glowing. She wrote of Kyoto's petals, of choosing herself. A knock interrupted her, a traveler, Sonam, who'd read her blog. You taught me to leave my fear, Sonam said, eyes bright. Helen's throat tightened. She saw Liam's future in Sonam's courage, unshackled, bold. The interview, she decided, was her next step. She'd speak, not for fame, but for those still silenced. As stars pierced Bhutan's sky, Helen stood on her balcony, the bracelet glinting. Her memoir would bear her scars, but also her wings. Liam's love was her compass, but her voice was her own. Tomorrow, she'd trek to a hidden valley, then plan her next leap, perhaps Antarctica's ice. Her story, a phoenix's song, would soar, and she'd sing it unafraid. Antarctica's ice glittered like a shattered mirror, its vastness swallowing sound and doubt alike. Helen, 64, stood on the deck of a research vessel, her parka a shield against the bone-deep chill. Her memoir, Phoenix Rising, was nearly complete, its pages a mosaic of pain and triumph, set to publish in months. Her blog had sparked a movement, but here, where the world felt newborn, she sought a final truth. Could she face her family's shadows and still stand whole? Liam's postcards, pinned in her cabin, were her anchor, but the journalist's interview, now viral, had stirred a storm she hadn't foreseen. Her gloved hands gripped the railing, the sea's churn mirroring her thoughts. The interview had bared her soul, Liam's thrown soda, Emma's betrayal, Frank's neglect, igniting global praise but also backlash. Online, some called her selfish, a grandmother who'd abandoned her kin. Others, her faithful readers, named her a hero. She'd shrugged off the noise, but a new message from Tom burned in her mind, Emma's in hospital. Breakdown. Liam's with me. They need you. Her chest tightened. Liam's laughter, his crayon phoenixes, were her light, but Emma's collapse felt like a trap, pulling her back to the kitchen's chains. She whispered to the ice, I'm not theirs to save. On shore, Helen trekked with a guide, Elena, across a penguin colony, their waddles a comic dance. She knelt, snapping photos for Liam, her lens catching a chick's curious eyes. Elena, a scientist with wind-carved cheeks, spoke of resilience in extremes. You're like this place, she said. Unbreakable. Helen's laugh was soft, but her mind churned. Was she unbreakable, or just guarded? She opened her journal, sketching the iceberg's jagged edge, her pen tracing her own, sharp, yet softening for Liam. She wrote, Love doesn't mean surrender. The words steadied her. Back on the ship, Helen called Liam, his voice a burst of sun. "Nana, did you see penguins?" he chirped. "Tons," she said, smiling. "I'll bring you a picture." His giggle faded to a whisper. "Mom's sick. Are you coming?" Her heart cracked. "Not yet, love," she said, gentle but firm. "But I'm always with you." Hanging up, she felt the weight of his hope, her resolve a tightrope. Tom's next text was blunt. "Emma tried to hurt herself. Please." Helen's breath hitched. She saw Emma's face, young, laughing, now broken. Pity stirred, but not duty. In the ship's lounge, Helen met Amina, a climatologist who'd read her blog. "You gave me courage to leave my past," Amina said, her voice fierce. Helen's eyes stung. She saw Liam's future in Amina's fire, free, not bound by Emma's pain. The memoir's release loomed, a reckoning. She'd face the world's judgment, but not alone. She emailed her publisher, add a dedication, "For Liam, my star." It felt right, a promise to him, not his parents. As auroras danced over the ice, Helen stood alone, the sky a canvas of green flame. Antarctica had shown her strength's cost, love, but not loss of self. Emma's crisis was hers to bear. Liam's love was Helen's to nurture, from afar. Her next journey, perhaps a return to Lisbon, beckoned. Her memoir would sing, a phoenix's anthem, and she'd carry its truth, fierce and free. Lisbon's cliffs sang with the sea's eternal hymn, waves crashing like applause for Helen's return. At 64, she stood on her cottage porch, the salt air weaving through her silver hair. Her memoir, Phoenix Rising, had soared onto bestseller lists, its dedication to Liam, my star, a beacon for readers worldwide. Her blog was a global hearth, but today, as gulls wheeled above, she faced a final crossroads. Could she guard her freedom while opening her heart to her grandson, without the shadows of Emma and Frank pulling her under? Her fingers traced the turquoise bracelet from Bhutan, its cool stone grounding her. The memoir's success had brought invitations, talk shows, book tours, but also a deluge of messages from Emma, now out of hospital, and Frank, claiming reform. She'd ignored them, but Liam's latest letter, taped to her fridge, danced in her mind, a drawing of them on a beach, labeled Nana's home. His love was a tide, pulling her toward a choice. She walked to the shore, barefoot, the sand gritty under her soles. Kneeling, she let a wave kiss her hands, her thoughts churning. She'd built a life of fire and flight, but Liam deserved her presence, not as the cook, but as the phoenix. Back at the cottage, Helen brewed coffee, its aroma a quiet ritual. She opened her laptop, her blog's latest post, a reflection on Antarctica's ice, glowing with comments. "You taught me to live," one read. She smiled, but her eyes caught an email from Tom, "Liam's acting out. He needs you. Emma's trying, but it's not enough." Her jaw tightened. She saw Liam's hurt, Emma's fragility, but also her own truth. She wasn't their savior. She replied, "I'm coming for Liam. 1 week. No promises for Emma." Sending it, she felt a spark, not duty, but love, fierce and chosen. The flight to London was turbulent, mirroring her heart. At Tom's flat, Liam ran to her, his hug a homecoming. "Nana," he cried, his eyes bright. She knelt, cupping his face. "My star," she whispered, her voice thick. Emma stood back, thinner, eyes hollow. "Mom," she said, tentative. Helen's nod was cool. "I'm here for him." Over tea, Emma spoke, voice frayed. "I'm in therapy. I see what I did. Can you forgive me?" Helen's cup stilled. She saw Emma's remorse, but also the years of erasure. "I hear you," she said, steady. "But forgiveness isn't mine to give yet. Live better, Emma." Emma's tears fell, but Helen's heart held firm. Days with Liam were a kaleidoscope, park picnics, museum adventures, bedtime stories. He clutched her hand, asking, "Will you stay?" Her throat burned. "I'll always come back," she promised, meaning it. At week's end, Frank appeared, sober, humbled. Helen, I was wrong, he said, voice low. She met his eyes, seeing not her husband but a stranger. I'm glad you're healing, she said. But my life's elsewhere. His nod was heavy, final. Back in Lisbon, Helen stood on her cliff, the sea roaring. Liam's love was her compass, Emma and Frank fading stars. Her next book, a sequel, brewed in her mind, tales of new horizons. She'd visit Liam, write, Rome, perhaps to Namibia's deserts. Her phone buzzed, a talk show invite. She smiled, wings wide. The phoenix was home, her story unending, her fire eternal.